Welcome to Run, Thrive, Survive with me, your host, Sierra Carter, the #1 podcast for your healthy habits for nutrition and exercise, race reviews from special guests, and everyday motivation. And of course, you guys, surviving life together. Are you guys ready? Let's go. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Run, Thrive, Survive podcast with me, Sierra Carter, your host, where we are here to run our lives instead of letting life run you. Now, today we have a super exciting episode. I really love his story of how he got into running, and you will see why. We are going to be talking about the Yosemite or the Yosemite Half Marathon. It's really not pronounced Yosemite. I just like to say that because we were talking about it here. That it looks like Yosemite, so just ignore that I even said that. But we are here to talk about the Yosemite Half Marathon that actually just took place a couple weeks ago. So before we get started, I do want to give a shout out to all the listeners. Thank you so much for listening. Please share it with your friends and maybe entice them and motivate them to get out and get moving as well, because it's good for you. It's good for everybody. It is a wonderful thing to be doing, especially now that we have become so sedentary over the past year. Things are opening up. It is time to get up and active again and get outside because the weather is beautiful. It's not snowing in most places. If you're in Florida, we're about to head inside to the gyms because it's getting hot. So, a little bit backwards, but get out, get moving, and get motivated to take on your next adventure. That's what we're all about here on the Run, Thrive, Survive podcast. But if you're going to the Yosemite, a couple things you're going to need to know before we really get into what the course is like, what it's like running at the Yosemite, and what you should be doing there. So when is this race? Well, you've missed it this year, and that's okay, because next year is going to be just as good to sign up for it. You've got more time to plan. So this year it was May 8th. It'll probably be about around the same time next year. Luckily, it was open. It was in California. It was in Bass Lake, California, outside the Yosemite National Park, and it's only a half marathon. So some of these, they have 5Ks or ultras. This one is only a half marathon. So make sure you know that before signing up. So you're not thinking you're signing up for a 5K and you're not thinking you're signing up for a marathon. It is a half marathon. The course is a point to point. The elevation gain is about 469 feet and most of it is downhill. So a lot of people are reporting that it's rolling hills at the beginning and rolling hills at the end. I know our guest today kind of says it differently. That's not really true. He was shocked at the course, so I can't wait for him to give the rundown on that. And of course, if you're traveling into it, sometimes these races are hard to get to because it is a vacation race and they do it around the national parks. But there's a couple places you can fly into here. Fresno, the Yosemite International Airport, not too far away, and Sacramento International Airport. So if you're like me, you're still looking for those Southwest flights, you're trying to find the closest, cheapest way into the national park, you may drive, but if you're like me, you're going to be flying because you live in Florida or on the East Coast. And most of us that live on the East Coast, it takes us a while to get over to these half marathons because they're on the West Coast in beautiful, gorgeous places. So setting the scene, I've told you the rundown, where to stay, where it's at, and kind of giving you an idea about what the course map looks like. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the course map for yourself. Just kind of get familiar with it. You don't have to memorize it. You don't have to know where every little curve and hill is. Just kind of know where you're going, kind of understand what's coming ahead. And I've already done the heavy lifting for you on the information. Now it's time to relax and just listen to what our wonderful guest has to say coming up after this break, because I'm telling you, he literally did this for his first half marathon. That is crazy, but I'm telling you, he loved it. So hopefully you are inspired to do just the same. So coming up after this break, we are going to be talking to Michael about his experience at the Yosemite Half Marathon. Stay tuned. Hey guys, real quick, I want to remind you what Run, Thrive, Survive's mission really is. While it was already on the rise over the last year, we have seen rates of anxiety, depression, and loneliness skyrocket. Taking on the challenge, I believe creating habits to build mental and emotional strength can be key to reversing the statistics. That's what Run, Thrive, Survive does. I promise to provide you with motivational adventures from others, everything running and fitness tips, and habit-forming strategies for success. Together, you guys, we can build a happier and healthier community so we can run our lives and not let life run us. Check it out at runthrivesurvive.com. All right, guys, we are back from that short break. Thank you for joining us today because we've got an exciting guest on, and he is dancing over here on the video. So you got to go over to YouTube to check out the video, look at his awesome dance moves because he's here talking about his first half marathon, which just happened to be the Yosemite, or what you might call it, the Yosemite Half Marathon. The Half Marathon. So I want to introduce and welcome Michael on to the show. Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Great dance moves. Now, I want to ask you now, who are you and how did you get into running? Opposed from dancing.
Sure. I fell off a ladder. That's the start of this story. So I'm Michael. I'm in the middle of a career shift, so we got like a little before and after. But when I first got into running, I was a stage manager for theatrical companies here in the Bay Area in California. Oh, wow. Now I've switched gears to be a project manager working for IT companies and private business. But back in the day, about 3 years ago, is how long ago I got into running. And I was over at a friend's house. I was up on a ladder, about 12 feet in the air, changing a light bulb, and the ladder fell from under me. I came crashing to the ground. I broke my heel, bruised my wrist, was in a lot of pain, but broken heel was really what did me in. And so, as you can imagine, I was in a walking boot for about a month. I was, bedridden for a few weeks, walking boot for about a month after that. Right. But the real scary thing was at my checkup, both my initial one and the checkup a few weeks later, they informed me I have high blood pressure or had high blood pressure. And I at the time was 35, and a 35-year-old should probably not have high blood pressure. No. So I kind of took that as a wake-up call and a warning to, start getting your act together because I didn't want to be on pills or medication of any kind if I can avoid it. So even with my foot in the condition it was in and with the walking boot on, I started exercising a lot. I was a big fan of the Nike training app, and I every morning would get up, do a 45-minute workout, and then take my dog on a walk, about 4.5 mile walk. And then, spend the rest of the day in bed when I still had the boot on, because that pretty much took it out of me. But I used that app as kind of a physical therapy and a little bit of rehab, learning to move again with that foot, as well as learning to be healthier. And within a few weeks, a few months, I lost 30 pounds. I wasn't even trying. I had a goal to lose weight. I just wanted to be healthier and be more fit and more active. And then I got the boot off, and I kept going with my exercises. And I was out with my dog walking one day, and I was thinking I could go a little faster. I've never liked running before that. I've tried. It just wasn't for me. Not unless I was being chased,
Right.
But so with my dog, we just took off running. And 45 minutes later, 4 miles later, I was having a great time. It didn't feel like an effort. It felt like my legs were going. And the upper half was just out for, a car ride, just looking at the sights and seeing what was going on. And I even tried to stop and walk a few miles into it. And I was like, no, I want to keep going. I'm really enjoying this. Wow. And so I started running. I downloaded the Nike running app to companion with my training workouts, and slowly just started doing a few miles here, a few miles there, a couple runs a week, and then started getting hooked. I got the running bug, started getting the gear, got some running shorts and went through several pairs of shoes until I found the right ones for me. And now I am just a few miles away from clocking my 1,000th mile. Wow. About 3 years later. And I just finished the Yosemite Half as my first race and my first half, and I'm a runner now.
How exciting. I have to be honest with you. When you said it went from I broke my heel and bruised all these different, I thought it was going to go from broke my heel to I just need to run because now I'm inspired because I can't walk. I thought that story was going to go entirely a separate way. But what an inspiring, cool story. It really is one of those things. I think I say it on every podcast because it's true. We start with these little tiny things. You start just running with your dog and it turns into this like drug that we just need more and more and more. And pretty soon you're running your first half marathon, first race as a half marathon because you've been doing this for so long. Now, I have to ask you, why did you sign up for Yosemite Half Marathon as your first? Why not a 5K? Why not a 10K? Why not anything before that?
Sure. I didn't really even consider any of those options. My girlfriend's her sister and her husband had done the half marathon, the Yosemite half in 2019. They didn't do it in 20 for obvious reasons. And so I had mentioned, being interested in doing something like that, and they kind of talked me into it. They have a cabin, a family cabin not far from Yosemite, which also has a nice benefit that we had a place to stay before and after, and it became a whole family affair. They also ran this year, and then my girlfriend, her parents, her other sister, they all volunteered at the finish line and were handing out medals and snack boxes and cheering people through the crossing the finish. So it was a whole family affair. And that was nice to have that support as well.
That's really cool. Now, are they runners? Is she a runner? Your girlfriend? Do you
She's a
run
runner.
together?
She's a runner too. She's had a little bit of an ankle injury this spring,
Oh
so she
no.
decided not to do it. But she was kind of regretting that, standing there at the finish line, like, man, I could have done this. And so
Well,
she's definitely gonna do the next one. We were looking at the Boise Marathon or half marathon this fall, so she might join me for that. But she was definitely wishing that she had partaken.
it looked like a beautiful, beautiful half marathon. I'm even sad sitting over here in Florida, like I should have just flown out and done that race because it was so beautiful out there. And I'm sure the weather
It
was
was.
much, much cooler than it is over here.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is there where you are, but it was like weather-wise, it was perfect.
Oh,
Not too hot, not too cool. Sunny most of the time, but we also had shade cover from the trees, so you couldn't ask for better running
wow.
conditions, I think.
Now you're making everybody jealous listening to this. So
Good.
going into good, going into this race, how did you train? So it's your first
Sure.
one. Like I just want to know, did you have a training plan? Did you follow something, or were you like most of us who do our first half? I'm gonna get to like 6 or 7 miles, think that's good, and then I'll figure out the rest. I think that's happened to
Oh,
most of us.
I followed a plan.
Okay,
I
cool.
was doing on average about 20 miles a week.
Oh wow.
Before I set on this endeavor, I was kind of doing like 2 miles every day as like a daily warm up. And then on
Right.
Sundays, I would do a long run. And every week, I would just add a half a mile. So, before long, I was doing 10, 11 miles, so practically a half marathon already.
Yeah, you're
But
already
then
there.
when I did sign up for this, and starting in about January of this year, about 4 months before the half, I downloaded the Nike training half marathon guide. They have a PDF that you can follow for a half or for a full.
Right.
And so I found my times and kind of figured out what my goals should be for the track runs, for the fartleks, for the various exercises they were taking me through. And I followed that pretty regularly. And they have you run about 6 days a week. And I
Right.
hit almost every one of those. There was maybe a few weeks where between whatever was going on in life or just needed some active recovery, I just couldn't quite make it certain days.
Happens.
But yeah, pretty regularly. Um, Almost every other day was a light recovery run. So on Mondays I did 2 miles, Wednesdays 3 miles, Fridays 5 miles. So it's got building up that endurance.
Right.
And then in between it would be hills, it would be laps, it would be speed, it would be fartleks, it would be all kinds of strength building exercises to build that up. And then on Saturdays or Sundays, depending on how you build your schedule, would be the long run and building up those more and more miles.
Again, I'm a little bit jealous. Everybody but Floridians can train hills. When we're asked to do a hill, we've got tiny little like hedges to go,
Hmm.
go up, but we can't train hills over here. So that's awesome. So did
I would
you feel it
imagine
was a
running on the beach though is kind of similar to a hill,
yeah, you know
maybe a
what?
little.
If you run at high tide here, it's pretty miserable. It's very miserable. Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
it's like running in quicksand. It's miserable, but it's good training. I don't do it
Yeah.
often, but it could be really good training. We have a causeway. You just run up and down the causeway. It's not like a hill, but it works at some point.
Well, get
Now,
chased by those gators.
gators, or if you go swimming with the sharks, I mean, you get to choose which one you want to do. it's, it's both, choose your tough. But moving in, so you finished the Yosemite. Before you talk about the course itself, how did you feel after your first half marathon? What was that feeling like when you
Um,
crossed the finish
I
line?
felt Well, I felt great deep down. I was a little frustrated in the moment as I was crossing the line,
Right.
but that was just kind of surface frustration. But I felt fantastic to finish. I
Awesome.
made it, and I was really happy with my time. I wasn't trying to race. I was just in it to finish, but I was
Absolutely.
pleased. I made it the whole way. I didn't walk at any point. I just set my pace and kept going, and was really glad to cross that finish line
And
and
it
just really euphoric.
and it's such an amazing feeling. It really is. I'm glad you joined the crowd knowing what that feeling is like. Now,
Yeah.
walk us through the half marathon itself, because I know everybody listening to this is dying to know what the marathon or the half marathon is actually like versus what it says on the pretty website. Because the websites are great,
Uh-huh.
but like, is it close to it? Is it tougher than you expected? How was it?
It was it, it was not what I was expecting, and
Uh oh.
it was fun. It
Okay.
was fun. It's a lot of downhill,
Oh, good.
and and as you look at the kind of the slice view of the topo, it doesn't. It looks a little bit more up and down, and
Yes.
that's what other people had described as a little bit more rolling hills, and I didn't really find that to be true.
Oh.
The first mile was pretty flat. The second mile was almost uphill climb, and then from mile 2 to 11, it was practically all downhill,
Oh, that's
which
nice.
a little different for training, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
And
hard to
then once
train on
we
the downhill, but if it's better than training up hills, to be honest with you. You just got to let your body move or
Mhm.
ache for the first couple hours afterwards.
But that's true. At the same time, you have to kind of learn how to cushion your lands and your knees a little bit too,
Absolutely.
because that can be a little bit harder if you're leaning back and trying not to throw that weight forward. And then
Absolutely.
once you get down to the lake level where the finish line is, it is a little bit more rolling hills, just kind of going up and over as you circle around Bass Lake there.
Beautiful. What kind of terrain was it? Was it like thin trails or did you have a pretty good space with all the other runners?
We had a pretty good space. The first 4 or 5 miles were dirt fire roads, like they would take to get to a campground or
Oh,
that old
yes.
logging trucks would be on. So we
Yes.
had, the full, I wouldn't say 2 lanes, but a lane and a half.
That's
And
a good
then
amount.
once we got about the maybe 5 or 6 miles, like I said, then it turns to paved road, and we had, both lanes to ourselves. So I just kind of ran right on the yellow lines, just right in the middle. And it was quite nice to have all that room. And even then, with all that room, I still had people passing close enough that I could have clipped them with an elbow.
Isn't
And
that
like, why,
crazy?
why are you passing me so close? We have so much room, man. Come on, spread out.
That happens in every single race, no matter how wide the course is. It's like those people need to like tag the people that they're passing every single time.
Hmm.
I know that's the first, it might be the first time you've seen that I don't think it's going to be the last time that people do that to you or cut you off. I've always seen that. That is just as frustrating.
That's
But
just the last time I let people pass me. That's all that means.
hey, if you're going to be at the front like Forrest Gump and everybody's behind you, all the power to you. Now, getting ready for this race, because I know you said it yourself or mentioned it in, in earlier in this podcast, shoes. This is something
Hmm.
I see a lot of people ask questions about. And this might be the first time I've really touched it in the podcast. What are your favorite shoes and what type of shoes did you wear for this?
So I'm a pretty diehard Nike fan. After all these years of following Nike's apps, and
Right.
I really felt they supported me through my recovery. I mean, I say they, but just the technology. But I love my Nike Pegasuses, my Air Zoom
Mm.
Pegasus. I started on the 36s. I now have a pair of 37s. And then for the half, I wore the trail running version of those.
What version is that? Is it just say trail running version?
Yeah, it just says trail running version. So they're not quite as squishy as the road version, but other than
Gotcha.
that, they're pretty identical.
Interesting. I didn't know they had a trail shoe, to be honest with you, with
hmm
Nike.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're great. They're really lightweight, really comfortable. And so I would wear my regular Pegasi,
One of
my
those.
my regular Nikes most days of the week when I was doing my training runs. But then when I was doing my long runs, I would wear my trail runners because I wanted to make sure that I knew what those were like at mile 10 and mile 11 and
Absolutely.
mile 12 and how they would be different than my other shoes. So I have my Nike Pegasus trail running version, and I would wear those on my longer runs because I wanted to find out what those were like at mile 10, mile 11, mile 12. I didn't want to have any surprises come race day. And then I
Okay.
would try to find some sort of single track trail, dirt trails to practice with those on because I knew that's what the race would be like, or at least the start of it.
Absolutely. I think the biggest mistake a lot of runners make, and I've done it. I'm not going to say I haven't done. I've not done this. We like to buy new shoes and we like to keep them nice and pretty until race day. We wear them like once or twice, but then we just keep them nice and pretty. And then race day, they give us blisters, they hurt. We don't know what
hmm
mile 12, 13 feels like. And if your feet hurt during a race, that race is going to be miserable. And
Yeah.
a lot of times, it's almost like the key reason people are it's a DNF because their
hmm
shoes hurt. So looking back
Yeah,
on this,
I had a good 50 or 60 miles on my shoes before the race that day. So they were, still fairly new, but at least broken in. And not only the shoes, but I also made sure to try various socks. So because, various socks and various thicknesses so I found the right shoe sock combination for that length, and then I would just practice in those. And then to answer the other half of your question, before I landed on those, I went through Sauconys, I went through some New Balances,
yeah,
and I always what made me land on the Nike anyway, what
Pegasi.
made me land on those is that after a run, the bottom of my feet did not hurt. They were not sore,
Huh.
unlike any of those other shoes. I'd go out for a run and I'd have a couple hot points on the balls of the feet or on the heel. But even with 200, 300 miles into those Nike shoes, I still would never have any foot pain. I might have leg pain, muscle pain, but never any foot pain. And so that was for
Interesting.
me like the golden ticket. I could
Absolutely.
finish a 10-mile run and my feet could feel like they could go do another 10.
Now, how long have you been training in those?
I landed on those, gosh, maybe a year and a half ago. I'm now on my third pair.
Once you find a
I get
pair,
about
stick with it.
yeah. And the nice thing with the Nike apps too is you can track your miles and assign them to certain shoes, so they'll let you know like, hey, you're reaching 250, 300 miles. You
That's
might
neat.
think about some new shoes.
Oh, that's neat. I didn't know the Nike app could do that. How cool.
hmm
Yeah, I wonder
Yeah, and
how
then
people
as I'm
counted it.
wearing my trail running shoes, I can assign a run to that set of shoes. As I'm doing road, I can assign a set to those shoes.
Oh my gosh. I don't think I ever knew that. I always wondered how people like counted how many miles they did in their shoes because people will be like, I did 500, time to get new ones. And I'm like, I think I've done 3 marathons in mine. I think it's time to get a new one, a new pair because they're falling apart on the inside. That's my, that's my like, oh yeah, new shoes time here. But wow, that's actually really cool. Neat to know.
Yeah, they
Now,
have a lot of nice perks on that app. And then I also would just tell with my own feet once I started to feel that hot point or that little pain point on the ball of my foot, usually somewhere between 250 and 300 shoes, then I would know, okay, it's time to get some new ones.
absolutely.
So your feet can be your guide.
Now, kind of going back to the marathon or half marathon,
Sure.
you being a new half marathoner, what do you wish you knew before you went into this half marathon? What are like two key points that you wish you knew before you ran this?
I wish I would have known how steep the downhill is. It's one thing to talk about downhill, but there were some sections that were really rather steep, to the point that the front of my toes were quite sore by the time I got there from being
Ah,
compacted into the front of the shoes. So I
absolutely.
wish I would have known a little bit more about that and either gotten some more cushiony toe socks, or just loosen the laces a little bit on the front there, or maybe laced it a little bit with a different pattern. All those nice lace tricks that I've read about. But that was the bit of a surprise, is how much toes going into the front of the shoes, and how sore they were at the end.
Yeah, especially if you didn't know it was as downhill as people said it wasn't.
Hmm.
Because a lot of people don't report that one as downhill. I don't think I've even heard that one was reported as downhill like you said it was. But you never know.
Yeah, I would say it's the majority of that run is downhill. And there was a few miles in the middle there that were pretty steep. I think I even saw a warning steep grade sign for the trucks.
Oh my, yeah, that that's got to be. I think it's if it's over like an 8% decline, it has to have that kind of signage.
Hmm.
So if that gives anybody listening to this podcast an idea of how steep this race is downhill, that does help give a visual. Now, because you're in Yosemite or Yosemite, whatever you want to call it or read it as, what did you do while you were there? Because I'm sure you didn't just go to run the half and then completely leave. Did you go on some hikes? What did you do? What
Yeah,
is
yeah,
there to
of
do there?
course. Went into the park, went to the valley floor, and
Cool.
of course it was being the weekend and lots of people there. It was very crowded, but it's also still early enough in the year that the waterfalls were flowing strong.
Oh,
And I think I sent you a picture of the
yes.
famous tunnel view.
And you're
That's
on.
still one of the.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
no, on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will be able to see the pictures. If not, just listen and enjoy. Keep going.
The tunnel view is one of the most amazing things. It's right as you're entering from, not from all directions, but from the southern side. You go through a pretty long tunnel, maybe a mile or so through this hillside. And as you come out the other end, there's El Capitan, there's Half Dome, there's the
Wow.
waterfalls. It's breathtaking. And there's the valley below. It's really breathtaking. And even now, after I've seen it a few times, it still takes my breath away going through there.
What was your favorite? What's your is I guess would be your favorite hike or view? What if you went there and told somebody to go there? What would you make sure they did?
The Yosemite Falls. It's easy enough that anyone in the family can do it,
I
and
love it.
there's also some advanced parts that if you are a hiker, or you do have some athletic ability, you can hike up to the very top of those falls. I would like to do the Half Dome hike someday. I'm not sure if I would go all the way to the peak because I don't like the idea of cable hiking. Having to hold on to cables for the very last part of that doesn't really interest me.
Oh my gosh. Do they have the
But
hold
the
on? Do they have the cables set up, or do you
Mhm.
have to set them up?
No, they have them set
Oh,
up. They
okay.
are they
Whew.
are sunk into the. I think it's
Oh
granite.
man.
They're sunk in there, but I'm not sure if you've ever been to Zion. Angel's Landing has a similar setup.
Very yes. Okay, I was gonna ask, and
Yeah.
that was my next question.
And even
Wow.
that doesn't thrill me either. I've done that too. I've done that hike, and I still haven't gone to the very top. I'll just stay there in the saddle because that's not hiking. That's something else to me.
It's like half rock climbing, half just
Hmm.
being dangerous. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
There's not really a word for it, but I understand what you're saying.
yeah. Maybe I'm just a wimp.
No, I think it's terrifying to think about. If you look at those hikes,
Yeah.
it's scary because it's so real. You can tumble, and you don't want to
Hmm.
be that one. You don't want to be on the news. Not at least not for
Hmm.
that aspect.
And
So
there's always every summer you hear reports of a couple people who slipped, or didn't catch their footing, or
yeah,
some mist came in and made everything wet and dangerous.
it's a
I
freak
can I can
accident.
do 3/4 of the way and call it good.
And you know what? You can say you hiked it. Nobody asks you if you go to the end. All you have to do is say you
Yeah.
hiked it. So, key there is just say you hiked it. You don't have to say how far you got. No big deal. Now, looking back on this entire trip, even if it's something that you want to do again at Yosemite or the half marathon, what would you do differently?
Hmm. Um, I would try to get a little bit more practicing, or more runs in at elevation. We got there a few days early, and I tried to do some, but you're there, you're relaxing.
Yeah,
Also, the race is coming, so you're trying to taper down. But it would have
absolutely.
been nice to either have a few more days there at elevation, or a few more runs in, or even just a nice long hike in at elevation, because that
Wow.
is still a bit of a surprise coming from the Bay Area, where I'm at like 100 feet maybe, up
I get it.
to, I think the starting line was somewhere around 3 or 4,000. feet. So that's quite a difference.
That's a significant difference. I didn't realize it differed that much, especially where you are in the same state. That's
Oh
wow.
yeah.
California is a beautiful state, and just making sure everybody knows Yosemite is in California. I know I didn't say that at the beginning. I get a lot of questions where some of these national parks are. Yosemite is in California. So starting to wrap this up, what is next for you in running? Are you going to do another half? Are you going to do a full? What do you see yourself doing next?
I would like to do another half. I've been looking at the Boise half. That's my hometown. It's actually where I'm
Woohoo!
calling from right now.
Awesome.
Uh, and it is in October. It goes along the Boise River, which is one of my favorite places to run. And I used to run there all the time when I first got into running. So it'd be
Oh,
nice to go back. And now that I am, the accomplished runner that I am, I'm not sure about doing a full. I don't really. It hasn't. That bug hasn't bitten me yet. Let's say that. As I was crossing that half finish line, and I thought to myself, "Gee, this would be halfway on a full." Yeah, no thanks. But I am
everybody thinks
interested.
that.
I am looking at doing a triathlon. That interests me
I
because I
like
do
that.
like to bike. I've been a biker a lot longer than I've been a runner, and doing the biking portion sounds awesome. And now that I'm a runner, that part sounds great too.
Right.
But I've never been that strong of a swimmer, so I either need to build that up, or maybe get a partner and do sort of a triathlon relay and let them do the swimming portion, and I'll bike and run, or we'll figure it out.
Hey, I am all for that. I was the same way as you, except I didn't have cycling under my belt. I didn't have swimming or cycling under my belt. I just jumped in because I saw something that said this includes a half marathon. And I was like, oh, why not? I'm a runner, and just figured it out. I promise you, if you've got the two under your belt, you'd be awesome at the swimming, and you just have to survive it. It's not a big deal. You just have to survive it. Don't go in and race it. Just survive it. That would be my advice at that portion of it. But that is awesome advice. And now, really quick, to wrap it up, what is the biggest key takeaway for anybody listening who wants to run the Yosemite? Maybe it's their first half marathon, maybe it's not. What is your biggest piece of advice for them or motivation?
So the big piece of advice would be to find your training plan and stick to it. Whether
Yes.
it's from a book, from a pre-made program, from an app, from a friend, find it and stick to it. You're doing it for a reason. You're going to really benefit from it. You're going to be very glad that you did. I was very thankful
Absolutely.
that I spent 14 weeks following that very structured Nike plan. And they had me do things that I never would have done on my own, different styles of runs, different types of trainings. I never would have done those on my own, or I didn't see those in other plans I was looking at. So I was really grateful that I stuck to that plan and followed it. Like I said, I missed a couple days, a day here, a day there. I wasn't extremely strict about it, but it was my guide. And if I missed a
Absolutely.
day, I tried to maybe make up for it a little extra the next day, as well as do your research as far as the nutrition that you need for yourself.
Yes.
Running and staying well watered, staying fed before the run, during the run, after the run. All these things are really important. I did a lot of research, looked at a lot of different books, a lot of different advice from other people, and then I kind of combined it all together for what I felt was the best guide for me. And I typed it all
Absolutely.
up and I stuck to that plan. Before a run, an hour before the run, eat and drink this much. 20 minutes
Yes.
before the run, eat and drink this much. During the run, every couple miles, you're having some carbs, you're having some protein, you're getting some water and electrolytes. After the run, same thing. You're making sure to take care of yourself. You're cooling down. You're getting
Mm-hmm.
protein into your system. You're getting whatever sort of recovery fuel that you feel that you need. And that really made sure that I can get up and run the next day. I just if I just ate some regular food and water and didn't really think about the nutrition, the nutrients that my body needed, vitamins, minerals, probiotics, etc. That really set me up for success as I continued to put the miles on every week. And these last 3 months, I clocked more miles than the last year combined. That's an average about 70 miles a month.
I want to say that is the biggest key takeaway right there. Watch your nutrition because it is going to set you apart from bad training to awesome training. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Michael. And I
You're
also
welcome.
want to thank you for coming on the show today because we're running out of time, but I want to make sure, because you do have a podcast and a blog yourself. Where can we find you at?
So you can find me, my blog is rude-mechanical.com. That's kind of my fun little handle. And I write mostly about project management stuff, but it's kind of goofy, and I do incorporate running. I will try to get a new blog out about running by the time that this airs.
I love it.
About sustainable pace. And then and I also record those and podcast those. And then my Instagram handle is rude-mech-agile.
Awesome. And we get to watch where you want to run next and see what else you're up to. I have one more question. It was just brought to my attention. You said at the beginning you started running because of your blood sugar. How is it now?
It's great. I've gone to the doctor, no blood pressure problems. I'm drinking lots of water, eating really healthy. Not to say that I wasn't before, but between that and the exercise and the much more active lifestyle now, it's great. And especially now that we're all stay at home and work from home and spend so much time sitting at screens, getting out and putting those miles on is even more important. Absolutely. Because we don't do the normal standing and walking and day to day that we used to.
Yeah.
No, and maybe that'll slowly come back, but in the meantime, running has just been my key to get out, listen to the news, clear my head, do whatever I need to, and then get away from the screen for a bit, and then come back and get a little bit more screen time.
Running is the best therapy for everything. Well, thank you, Michael, so much for coming on today's podcast. If you are listening and you enjoyed today's podcast, please hit that subscribe button and leave a review. Send us your inspiration, your motivation. Give us your thoughts, comments, and open up your heart to why you love running in the comments there. And head over to my Instagram at The Runpreneur, and Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Run, Thrive, Survive, so you never, ever miss any content coming out or races coming up. So you guys, thank you again so much for listening to today's podcast. I wish you the best, and I will see you next time. But for now, go out there and run your lives. Bye, guys. I was going to say we should bring him back up.